Welcome to Encounter Wargaming. I'm Jay, and this is Retconned and Redacted. Before I get into today's topic, I'd just like to extend a massive thanks to our patrons on Patreon. Without you folks, this channel would not be possible, and those of you that have decided to give back are greatly appreciated. If you want to join these amazing people, then check out our Patreon link in the description below. You won't regret it. With that out of the way, let's get into today's topic. Today we're going to cover a race that has been completely retconned out of the fluff, to the point where they are all but lost to the obscurity of the past. I'm talking about Zoats. There's not a lot of fluff on the Zoats, so what better place to begin than an actual piece of fluff itself. This is from the Rogue Trader rulebook of 1st edition. Zoats. Zoats are the most common of all the Tyranid, many specially engineered slave races. Other slave races are little more than animals, mere blobs of protoplasm dedicated to cleaning and maintaining the hive fleets of which they are a part. Even the hulking spacecraft that compose the hive fleets are in a sense races, as they are grown and nurtured from a common, albeit much modified, biological stock. Spacecraft are mindless monstrosities, and the vast majority of other slave races are so dedicated to a single purpose it would be inappropriate to think of them as creatures. Zoats, on the other hand, are completely independent living creatures, much like their masters. The xenobiologers of the Administratum believe that Zoats were created purely for combat. Tyranids, being creatures of space, suffer discomfort if they spend too long on a planet. Zoats, however, are stocky animals that feel quite at home in a wide variety of atmospheric and gravitational conditions. Like Tyranids, Zoats are centauroid. Their two rear sets of limbs are heavily built and muscular, providing the creature with the means of locomotion. The front limbs are manipulative organs of great strength and are used to wield a variety of weapons. Unlike Tyranids, Zoats will eat anything, although they largely subsist on a daily diet of 3 reconstituted protein-based woven biscuits called Zotabix. Zoats are common hive fleet inhabitants, often equaling the number of Tyranids themselves. Zoats were originally introduced in Rogue Trader, aka 1st edition, Warhammer 40k. They are described as a centauroid race. This means they possess a quadrupedal lower body while having a humanoid upper body. They possess stocky arms and large feet similar to those of a Terran elephant. They have scaly hides that provide a similar level of protection as leather armor. They are much taller than a man and considerably more muscular. This makes them an intimidating foe for most opponents. They are skilled in both close quarters combat and ranged combat. They are also able to make use of a variety of weapons. These can be conventional weapons similar to those of the Imperium, such as bolters and flamers. They are also able to make use of Tyranid bioweapons, which makes them unique amongst Xenos races, since they are not a Tyranid subspecies as such. They were instead introduced to the game as one of the Tyranid's many engineered slave races. Unlike most of the other races that the Tyranids kept as slaves, the Zoats possessed independent thought, and therefore were not subject to the hive mind. This allowed them to be utilized as scouts and ambassadors for the Tyranids, having the ability to travel way ahead of the hive fleets. The Zoats, though brute in appearance, have highly developed brains that are capable of heightened psychic abilities. Under Tyranid rule, their psychic powers were not able to flourish, and they were only permitted to use their telepathic powers. This gave them the capacity to act as ambassadors, since they would not have to learn the languages of new races they encountered, per se. Instead, they were able to communicate with these races telepathically, on first contact, as opposed to verbally. Due to not only their telepathic abilities, but also because they were quite skilled at assimilating cultural information very quickly, this made them charismatic diplomats, able to understand alien cultures much quicker than their more animalistic Tyranid masters. This allowed them to not only assess the usefulness of an alien race to the Tyranids' gene pool, but also gave them the ability to subvert species in order to prepare them for a hive fleet invasion. Due to these facts, the Zoats were the first members of the Tyranids to encounter the Imperium in M38. They claimed they were escaping slavish oppression. This fleet is known to history as Hive Fleet Colossus. They entered Imperial space in what are described as semi-organic spacecraft. This describes the nature of Zoat technology quite well, actually. They've been known to utilize a mixture of biological and mechanical devices. They have been known to make use of Tyranid bioweapons. Zoats have been seen carrying flesh borers and bone swords. They have also been able to frequently make use of bolt weapons, such as bolt pistols, bolters, as well as heavy weaponry like heavy bolters and missile launchers. Their spacecraft are something of an oddity, though. Much like their Tyranid masters, they utilize organic material that has been grown, as opposed to the skeletal structures utilized in other Tyranid spacecraft, or the metals used in the spacecraft of other races. Zoat ships fuse their organic components with stone. This makes them extremely unique as far as the other races are concerned. Almost all Zoats also utilize respiratory masks of one kind or another. They're known to breathe a very specific atmosphere that is apparently rare in the worlds in our galaxy. What the chemical composition of this atmosphere is, we can only guess. Either way, they generally make use of these devices all the time, and so the sight of a Zoat's face is a rare occurrence indeed. The process of retconning, if that's even a word, them out of the fluff was complete by the time of 3rd edition of the game, which was the last mention of the race, that is until recently. They just got a new model this year, 2020, in Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress. Since Colossus was the first fleet the Imperium encountered, it was quite easy for them to write the Zoats out, since they would have been scouting ahead of the other hive fleets. The idea is, as the hive mind got more and more widespread throughout the Milky Way galaxy, they had less and less use for their Zoat slaves. In the past, they used their independent thought to go where the hive mind couldn't. Having currently infested much of the galaxy, the Tyranids have no use for either scouts or ambassadors, especially when they make use of gene-stealer cults as scouts. It would appear that the Tyranids made use of a hormone that would limit the Zoats' ability for independent thought. This made it easier for the hive mind to control them psychically, and therefore keep them docile and subservient. It was only when this hormone wasn't present that a Zoat rebellion was able to happen, which was a rare occurrence, but still not unheard of. It's theorized that understanding that their usefulness had a lifespan, the Zoats staged more and more rebellions. This may explain why Colossus was mostly Zoats, and why they claim to be fleeing slavery. As there were more and more Tyranids present throughout the galaxy, there were less and less Zoats. If they were seeking asylum, they found the wrong race to ask in the Imperium of Mankind. The xenophobic nature of humanity likely caused the Zoats to be lodged between a rock and a hard place, to be cliché. They faced the dangerous human race while being tailed by their Tyranid enslavers. Hive Fleet Behemoth involved some Zoats, but in far fewer numbers than their Colossus predecessor. By the time Hive Fleet Behemoth invaded, Zoats were a rarity. by the time Leviathan showed up, they were no longer seen amongst the ranks of the Tyranids. The last vessel in the original Hive Fleet Colossus was destroyed in the Zoroastra-Attila War. This was the last recorded appearance of Zoats by the Imperium. The odd mercenary has been known to show his head from time to time. In fact, they could be fielded as mercenaries for Eldar pirate groups in Rogue Trader. There is a rumor of various Zoat cultures on worlds throughout the galaxy existing independently of any Tyranid influence. It would appear that without suppression by the Tyranids, they are capable of having a variety of diverse societies, with varying art, religion, and culture. Just to finish off today, I thought it would be fun to look at another little piece from the Rogue Trader stuff. This is the actual unit entry for the Zoats, and actually has a nice little bit of fluff in it, as well as, obviously, you know, it's fun to look at the old stats and stuff like that, and see how these guys were organized in actual gameplay. So, I may as well just start reading. Although they are a slave race, Zoats occupy important positions throughout the Hive fleets, and individual Zoats can gain great power. Rebellion from Tyranid control is not unknown, but is extremely rare. This is because Tyranids secrete a special slave hormone which suppress the Zoats' natural sense of independence. However, renegade Zoats do exist throughout the universe, where they have broken away from the Hive fleets or have become lost during scouting or exploration missions. Without the inhibiting influence of the Tyranid slave hormone, Zoats are able to develop strong psychic powers. The path of independent Zoat civilization is incredibly diverse, with small groups isolated from each other on widely scattered planets. So here we go, we have a Zoat. It's pretty cool to look at the stats. Strength 4, toughness 5. I mean, if you're new to the game, you can look at this in the retrospect of, through the lens of 8th edition. So, I mean, to put it for those who didn't play 7th and before, a ballistic skill 3 meant a 4+ to hit, and a weapon skill 5 means a 3+ to hit most of the time. Weapon skill worked a little differently than it does now, but against a Space Marine or a Guardsman, it would be a 3+ to hit against either, just to give you a perspective. Initiative 5 means you're probably going first against most basic troops in close combat, which is pretty cool, and 3 wounds is basically an Ogren, right, or an Ogre, or whatever. Anyway, this is the basic creature profile for Zoats. Personalities can be generated from this in the same way as for humans and other aliens. The chart below summarizes the profiles and the standard personality types. These can be used instead of the randomly generated characters if you wish. So there you go, a champion, minor hero, and a major hero. They used to do this in Rogue Trader as well as in 2nd edition. I think they got out of the generic major hero, minor hero sort of stages in 3rd 40k. But they kept it going in fantasy for a little bit, I think, up until like, maybe, I don't know. They might have just kept it going, I don't even really know. But regardless, so this is basically, your champion's basically like your squad sergeant, your minor hero would be like a Space Marine lieutenant, and then the major hero would be a captain. Or actually, I guess all that's changed now. So the minor hero, I suppose, would be the captain, and the major hero would be the chapter master, let's say. Zoats of the Hive fleets are never psychic. Independent Zoats are too diverse to include here in detail, but a typical population might result in personalities having a 50% chance of psychic powers. Some populations are more psychic than others. That's interesting, eh? So it's like you absolutely have to feel them outside of a Tyranid army in order to benefit from any psychic abilities. Cool. Zoats fight in military units of 4. Their unit leaders are Zoats, although the higher ranks and more technical positions are likely to be filled by Tyranids. Huh. Any Tyranid force must have at least half its number made up by Zoats. So there you go, in the beginning you have to have half of your force made up of Zoats. That's interesting. Equipment, Zoats use standard Tyranid equipment. There you go. Bioweapons, right? So units and leaders can be equipped using the same chart as Tyranids. So, boom, there you go. A typical squad comprises of 4 individuals, including 1 leader, usually 1 special weapon warrior. Clothing takes the form of a harness, provided a holster positions for various weapons. The basic weapons carried is a bolter. Interesting. Special weapon is a heavy bolter. There you go. The officer also has a bolt pistol, and is exactly as for Tyranids. Confusing. That's something I'm going to have to look into as well then. Tyranids using bolt weapons, I suppose that is kind of the situation. I know at least Space Marines could use shuriken catapults and stuff back then, so I mean, I guess everybody just kind of shared weapons. Uniforms, Zoats wear the same harness as Tyranids. Weapon generation, they generate weapons and equipment using the Tyranid chart. Okay, makes perfect sense. Transport, generate vehicles using the Tyranid charts. If there even was any Tyranid vehicles back then, that'd be interesting to look into too. And then tactics. Zoats from the warrior corps of the Hive fleets are found in a capacity of guards and police, as well as fighting warriors. They're extremely potent fighters and fit well into the Tyranid ethos of the fast, hard strike. So that was enlightening, and it sort of sheds light on everything I basically spoke of before that, I suppose. But that's basically all I have time for in today's episode. If you like this video, please hit the like button and share this video with your friends. Also, if you have any questions or you know where I can find more info on the Zoats, please throw it in the comments below. I always read the comments, guys, and I do my best to respond to as many as I can. Also, if you want to help support our content so we can make more videos like this one, as well as all of the other awesome stuff that we do on this channel, then please check out our Patreon campaign, linked in the description below. Also, in the description below is a link to our Spreadshirt page where you can help us out a little bit by picking up some Encounter Wargaming swag. Anyway, that's it for me today. Catch you at our next encounter.
Like a monkey in a rock.